Well, what a perfect way to start a Monday morning, and a great song. Thank you for putting that on, Matt. Thank you for doing the hard work and producing this show. I really appreciate that. And if anyone knows that song, it's actually originally a German song. It must be 99 Luftballons. So it's 99 red balloons. For anyone who's around from back in the day, it's kind of an anti-war song, kind of a joke about how this girl's in a store in Berlin. She buys some balloons. She pumps them up with helium and then accidentally lets one go. And then the countries go to war. I guess the communists versus the West, they go to war, and nuclear war, and they blow up the whole world because of this balloon that was let go. And it's kind of obviously a farce about it, but it's a really actually pretty deep song, and one of those unusual pop songs that I actually really enjoy. I think it has a pretty cool meaning and a pretty perfect meaning for what on earth is going on in the world this week, or in the U.S. I mean, Matt, and apologies first of all for I've got a bit of a cold, so I may have a bit of a funny voice. I may be coughing a bit, but Matt, I don't know if you've been following it like I have, but that was one of the weirder situations I have ever seen in my life. That whole Chinese balloon issue.
It is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It has taken, I think social media, has helped contribute to this phenomenon here. But everybody, like I've seen Elon Musk, I've seen, prominent names, Donald Trump Jr., just, making all of these jokes and all these memes and all of these puns about what's going on. And I think what I love here is everyone seems to have an opinion. Everyone seems to have a thought on what's really going on here. And it's kind of been fun. People have been creating all like these storylines, and they've been doing these great illustrations and cartoons and just, making a big joke out of it. But it's really, really interesting. So more than anything, I'm curious. I know people like to engage in the comments sometimes, so I hope people leave their thoughts in our comment section down below as well. But I guess we can just kind of start with, so basically, I've got a few questions that I'd like to bring up, but so basically the Biden administration knew that there was this so-called spy balloon floating over the country and kept it hush. Nobody said anything. It wasn't a topic. It wasn't brought up. Nobody was notified of it. It took until I don't know, random farmers in Montana or somebody looked up and said, "Hey, what is that? Why is this thing just floating over our skies?" And it caught local attention. And basically, after kind of making its rounds in Montana, the government was like, "Yeah, hey, by the way, this is a Chinese spy balloon," and it kind of floated across the U.S. It's made its stops in I think I saw over Kansas, over Oklahoma, over South Carolina. And, a few questions that first and foremost that I would bring up is, one, did China actually take responsibility? I've seen conflicting reports. I've heard conflicting things. Who knows what? But who looked up in the sky and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, that's China. It's a white thing floating across the country." So, I don't know how they associate it with that.
I heard a report that China said that it is a civilian balloon and not a Chinese...
A weather balloon. Was
that what they said it was? But they said it's not a government balloon that floated all the way across the U.S. But Matt, what?
The ocean.
What on earth is going on? And people are freaking out about this, and they're saying, shoot it down. And say, wait, it's a balloon. And they got satellites, Matt. They got satellites, and U-2 warplanes. Geez, that's 60 years outdated. So who knows what kind of warplanes they have now?
Yeah, that's the thing to look at here is China, one of the by far one of the most technologically advanced countries on the planet. Do they need this 1920s Wizard of Oz balloon to float across the country to spy on us? I don't know. That seems very suspicious. That of all the things that Al Qaeda was more efficient in their spying than China seems.
Was it just me, or were you picturing a guy up there with binoculars looking down on the farmlands of Kansas, reporting back,
using his finger with the wind to negotiate himself?
I think we are in Topeka,
starting a new world.
Yeah. Come on. That's what's so bizarre about it. Is you had all these people that were taking this super seriously, like you said, and a lot of jokes about it too, but a lot of people really seriously upset about it. It's like, wait, what is going on? It's a balloon. And I saw, oh geez, who's the conspiracy theorist guy? Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
And Alex Jones is like, Alex Jones is like, this is the perfect machine to drop a nuclear bomb.
You do a good impression. That's a good impression,
especially when I'm sick. It's got propellers and it's got bombs and they're gonna drop it and they're gonna destroy all of America. It's like, guys.
No, Alex Jones is not on the show. That is Kevin.
Right. YouTube's gonna ban us immediately because they think
our guest Alex Jones today. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. No. It's so bizarre. So, it's just what.
But my thing is, and I've gone back and forth with this. Would you be afraid to pop it?
Like personally?
Oh no, not you personally, but I mean, like you shoot the thing out of the sky. Would a bioweapon fall out? I've seen that. I don't know.
No.
People have said I've seen that. Sounds like a perfect way to launch a biological attack. I don't know, but I've seen people saying that too. And what I laughed at, and it's somewhere on the internet. Biden responded, of course, in typical Biden fashion. The guy stumbling over his words. Not even understanding probably what even occurred, but yeah. So the balloon was shot down over South Carolina's beaches. The Air Force, and they're bragging about this too. The Air Force launched a missile and shot it and popped it, and like now they're like U.S. military 1, balloon 0. Like, is this a distraction to something? Like, are they trying to make us?
If the pilot already had two down planes, does he become an ace? You know, he downed a balloon. I can just imagine, on his plane, he's got a painting of a balloon, a sticker of a balloon for having shot.
National hero. Hero.
Well, I mean, there's a question. Why not fly up a drone or something to look inside? They probably did that.
Yeah, they sent two F-22 fighter jets up there. So this was like a nice big operation. I guess it was pretty big. The balloon was like, it looks like a tiny little speck in the sky, but I guess like if it was on the ground, it's fairly large, heavy, big thing. But yeah, and they're bragging that it only took one missile, that they were able to knock it out in one shot. Do you think, I mean, again, there's reports people are making, you don't know what's real, what's people's ideas or whatever, but they're saying stuff like, well, China got all their information that they needed. It's over the South Carolina, coast, Atlantic Ocean now. China gave the okay, go ahead, pop it. They got all their information. Possible? I mean, I don't really know.
They've got satellites. Why on earth do they need a balloon?
They have people on the ground.
Exactly. They've bought half of America at this point. I mean, Bill Gates and China own all of the American farmland practically. So why on earth did they need a balloon? Come on, we're not in the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen.
It's probably just a prank. They probably did it to be funny.
I was crossing my mind as like, okay, what's the craziest conspiracy theory here? And it actually kind of crossed my mind that in some weirdly crazy way that the song 99 Red Balloons, excuse me, that again, the idea is we need some way to start a war. And, I mean, somehow they're thinking, okay, I guess a balloon is crossing into our country. And you know what? If it is China's, then yeah, hey, you don't send a balloon over here and spy on. That's not cool. But then it's so ridiculous that it's like, wait, it's a balloon. And again, it just doesn't make sense.
And it made its way over the Pacific Ocean too, so it crossed all the way over. And it's also to say, like, we're not watching our skies. Like we're not seeing what's up there, and like they, I'm sure they are. So I don't know. This is probably just, maybe they're mocking Kim Jong-un. He can launch missiles, we can launch balloons. I don't really know, but see, now if I was president, I would, without a doubt, put up a balloon and send it to China just to go try it. And I would paint it very colorfully, and I would send it over just as a joke, have a little fun and hover it over Beijing for a little bit.
Okay, I'm just imagining. Just imagine the defense, administrators. The people who are in charge of the defense of America, and they're sitting there. They're all in this conference room, and it's really, imagine it's like a movie, right? So it's really hot, and it's really, this is really getting dramatic, and they're like, okay, wait, are you serious? No, nobody thought about balloons. Tell me someone thought about defending against balloons.
We don't have a plan.
Pan over to the guy. It's like, Jimmy, you didn't plan against balloons. It's so absurd.
Do you think
maybe that's the case? The U.S. has all these Star Wars types defense systems. They're going to shoot down nuclear weapons, but they just didn't think about balloons.
About the balloons, so you get them when you least expect it, right?
I guess.
And I was thinking too, I wonder if they did a few exercises before they actually did the real attack on it. Like they have one of their agents blow up a birthday balloon and like mock the attack first, and then after a few successful, they narrowed it down. There's this picture. I don't know who follows Jack, is it Posobiec? However you say his last name. Posobiec. On he actually has a picture of the pilot who was the one in the aircraft that launched the missile. And yeah, you could see his photograph and get your thoughts for yourself, what you think of what he looks like. I'm not sure the gender of the pilot.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I don't know, all political theater, but it totally took the conversation away off the garage thing. You know, the documents from Biden and I don't know, totally takes the conversation off things, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, who knows now? Is this going to just die down, go away, like a lot of other crazy stories that pop up? People forget about it. Phenomenon's over with. See ya. Or is this kind of going to linger a little bit? I mean, there are 2 more from what I heard. There's more. There's more balloons out there. So.
Well, either way, it didn't look good for Biden. I mean, Biden, as always, as you said, just kind of looked like he didn't have the answer. He's not in charge. He's like, oh well, military. I wanted to shoot it down. The military said I couldn't. So.
And he ranks above. Yes,
right. That's the commander in chief.
Yeah. Right. He said, I wanted to shoot it down on Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever day he might have said. But one of his generals said, no, we're gonna wait. And he was like, okay, sure, whatever. You're right. Like, you rank ahead of this guy, dude. You're the commander in chief. You say go, they go. You don't need a congressional declaration of war here to do this.
And I mean that could make some sense for China to do it, and actually, you know, a little bit of practical sense that it is just literally a test to see, hey, we're going to send a balloon. Are they going to blow it up? Because imagine if it was Trump, because that was why people were so afraid of Trump. Now Trump, not the best guy ever. I said I don't want to be pro-Trump, whatever, you know. But
sure,
if China had done this, I feel confident he would have blown that balloon up pretty quick. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, I agree.
But that's what was so scary about Trump. That's why the world kind of quaked. Because they didn't know what he was going to do. I mean, he was like, "Hey, Iran, you're not going to play ball, or Israel. Okay, then we're going to take away all your money. Or okay, you bomb us, we're going to obliterate your entire country." And people were like, "Dude, I think he might be."
What I liked about him is that both foreign enemies, if you want to call them that, and even people internally, Clinton and the clique there, said that Donald Trump is a little off. He's a little crazy, and that played to his advantage. There were people like Kim Jong-un who actually thought to themselves, he's not like Obama or Bush or Clinton or however far back you want to go. He's just crazy enough to actually hit that button. And he even made a tweet. I remember Kim Jong-un, they do their little missile launches that shoot up 10 feet in the air and then they fall back. He actually tweeted something like, hey, Kim Jong-un, the chairman or whatever, or little rocket man, whatever he would call him. He said, I have a nuclear button too. Mine's bigger, better, and it works. So we can play the game here. And that's the thing, is just like you said, they thought that he was just not stable enough that he actually might do it. And that played to our advantage, because he was actually going to take action here. I don't know. I wonder if did they think of trying to maybe capture it and bring it to Earth? I don't know. Like you said, they must have spied to see what was in it.
Yeah.
Were there, the guy with his binoculars.
I mean, come on,
Toto.
Matt. Have you ever used Google Earth? I mean, you can go to Google Earth and you can look at like an inch, in someone's backyard. I mean, these satellites are ridiculous. So don't try to tell me they didn't have every picture available of every centimeter of that balloon. Right. So obviously they knew something about it, or they knew everything about it, most everything. So I guess I think it makes sense that China could have done it. So they say, okay, let's test. Let's see what Biden's going to do. And now they know. Now they know. Hey, you know what?
Right.
Their commander in chief is not prepared whatsoever to be strong, to make decisions, or to protect his country. And I think that's true. And I honestly, I think the whole thing's a joke. But if I were in America right now, I'd be a little worried.
Yeah. And I think too that it must be one of those situations where they're laughing, right? They're looking at how we're handling this, and they're like, look, they're letting these spy pieces of equipment or whatever fly across their country, and nobody seems to be doing anything, or nobody seems to be caring much at all. And what's interesting is you get little insights, I guess. Donald Trump Jr. is very active on Twitter, Donald Trump's son. And he has posted stuff like, we would have shot it, we would have done this, we would have done that. So you do kind of get that insight as to what I think the Trump administration would have done. And I think I don't even know who our Secretary of Defense is anymore. I think I can't
Probably
even. You're not even an American. You're right. I used to know. Now the name, I don't know. This administration, I have no idea really much of many high-ranking names. But wow. So I'm curious. People and listening, leave their comments, share their thoughts, tell us what they think. What is the purpose of this balloon? Why is it over our country? Or was it over our country? What was China's motive? Was it even China? I mean, maybe Trump did it. Maybe that's Trump's balloon, and he's like, Sleepy Joe. Let's see what you can do. Maybe in the debate he'll announce that he was the one who did it.
Well, speaking of Sleepy Joe, it's really interesting again that I predicted in, I don't know, October or November that during the winter we're going to have a really rough winter. We're going to have a really bad inflation.
The pipeline, right?
Inflation has happened. But I also predicted that, you'd start to see even worse jobs. You'd see, the economy collapse, and it's not happening. I just saw a report from the U.S. over the last couple of months, and their employment rates are booming. Absolutely booming to, I think, a record high in the last 15 years or something. I saw that posted somewhere. I think that was disclosed TV or something on Twitter, and that's pretty interesting. And we're not going to spend too much time on this because we have a really interesting topic coming up next. But did you have any brief thoughts on that?
Well, yeah. So I think the first thing that I would say is that people might be skeptical of the jobs report. One, because they see the conditions of other things, right? The price of gas is going up again. Growth, you see all the jokes about the price of eggs and all of that. Very, very, very high. Cost of living, you name it, it's elevated, it's up, right? So just as a whole, the economy feels bad. I think there are a lot of people who feel like we're in a recession. They're just not using that word yet, but all the conditions are here for one. And so a booming economy report doesn't make sense. It makes you raise an eyebrow. Just like you said, it's a little, not alarming, but like it catches your attention. And I think one of the things that I've seen here is that raw numbers can be very deceiving because they don't tell the entire story, right? You look at the numbers, you're like, wow, this looks good. But oftentimes there's layers of it where there's information beneath that number that explains it a little bit more. And one of the things that I heard was that in order to keep up with the cost of living, in order to keep up with rent and the housing, everything, people have had to take a second job. So people who, they're employed, they have a position, a full-time job, they're taking on more work, and that's contributing to people being hired, people quote unquote entering the workforce. Also, I've seen people say that people who were retired aren't getting enough money to live off of anymore. So they're having to go back to work, and that's pushing people back into the workforce. So it looks like more and more people are getting jobs. So that's one way where the numbers can kind of be manipulated. And other groups of people have said the number's totally false. Don't believe it. Would you put it past the government to lie with numbers? I don't know what their benefit would be. I don't really know maybe, I don't know, but somebody said don't trust these numbers either. So I think there's explanations for it. Maybe it's legit. Maybe the numbers are good. But I do think that it's very likely that, people are coming out of retirement because they realize they can't live off of their benefits package, or people do need a second job. I mean, I've seen, if you just look through Twitter, people have said, I've taken a second job because I saw one guy say, in order to live the life I lived 5 years ago today, I need an additional $20,000 a year. So I'm doing something on the side. Yeah, I know. So that certainly can contribute. So I don't know. It doesn't fit to me because I think people know that, we're not, you can just feel it. You can just tell based on other living conditions that we're not doing well. It's just kind of obvious.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wondered. And obviously, since I'm not there, it's hard to say. But I can say, and I obviously see inflation. I think everybody sees inflation. The cost of everything has risen. But, the cost of fuel, we have a diesel car, and it was before Christmas, it was around €2, and now it's down to 170. So, it's something that has not gotten worse, like I predicted. I thought it would be double. I was like, it's going to be €4, but a lot of people did, and it's not. And it's a really interesting thing because it just shows that we can predict and predict and predict the end of the world, and it's all going down, and the economy is going to collapse, and then
the
it doesn't.
Doomsday clock. Yeah,
it's true. And you know what? And I think it's a really good lesson because I think it's still interesting to talk about. I don't mind that I even predicted it, but I think it's really important to remember not to be obsessed with this stuff, not to be all the time everything's bad. This is bad. Oh, look at this. This is this and this, and it's just everything is going down in the world, and yeah, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. I think we all know that, but I think that it doesn't help to dwell on that. I mean, I think it's much better to dwell on ourselves and our own shortcomings and to, try to make it through the best as we can, because I think that the negativity really doesn't just drag on you, it drags on everybody around you. So that would be something I'd recommend. And for myself too, again, don't always think just because because you see things that might be doesn't mean that they are or that they will be. I think that's an important thing to remember. But there is some news that is pretty tragic if you're a semi-trad or people members of the indult groups of the Novus Ordo, and that's something that I think you're kind of more of the in that type of news. So what's going on with SSP or SS Fraternity of St. Peter and Christ the King?
Yeah. So I think people heard a few months ago that Bergoglio was going to take this Traditionis Custodes to the next level and really, hit these indult communities, right? Indult meaning that they basically have permission to say the old mass. So that would be the Fraternity of St. Peter, the Institute of Christ the King. And so the latest rumors out of the Vatican, this was brought up originally by Mario at Novus Ordo Watch, but other sites have confirmed it as well, that the Vatican, I'll just read this verbatim here, the Vatican will unleash another attack against the traditional Latin Mass on April 3rd. Now, this is Holy Week as well, by the way. So this is going to really stir some, ruffle some feathers. The FSSP and the Institute will not be granted ordinations in the Old Rite. In addition, Old Rite sacraments of baptism, confirmation, marriage, and of course those ordinations will all be banned. So my first thought is what would that look like? So let's say that I have attended the Institute of Christ the King, and I have a child and I wish to baptize them. I don't quite know what the path would be here, because it does say that the fraternity and the institute will not be permitted to offer sacraments in the Old Rite. Now, those men who are in the institute, who are in the fraternity, they can't say the new mass. They can't. It's in their what would you call it? I don't want to call it their contract, but they're not allowed to say the new mass, the new sacraments, whatever. So what are they going to say? Like, we can't baptize your child here. You've got to go to the local, Novus Ordo church. Then you can. I mean, are they only a mass functioning parish? I don't really know what this is going to look like, and I think we'll have to wait and see. So I think people, they're going to be forced, and I think this is where people are going to have to make a decision one way or the other, right? My inclination is that a lot of people will find refuge in the society. They'll go to the SSPX. There's a lot of them. They're plentiful. My state alone has 2 chapels, and we're small. They're spread out, and they tend to be fairly accommodating. So I think it's going to push people away. What that will mean for the fraternity and the institute, I don't quite know yet. I is this step one of many more? Is this the final hammer? I don't really know what they have planned, but I mean, my thoughts would be is that people, and this is what happened to me, and this is what happened. I don't know if you listened, Kevin, to John Salza. He was on one of the Matt Fradd, I think it was, and he went to the society. He went to the SSPX, right? As a lot of people, I think, will. And then when you're there, you're really faced with a real big predicament. Because I was actually saying this on Twitter the other day, and it was one of the things that really got me, is that there's nothing in church documents and magisterial documents that say, if you don't like what the Pope is saying, you can find a bishop that you do like and attach yourself to him. And that is the massive problem with Lefebvreism. That is the to me anyway the crux of the matter here with the SSPX is that there are so many people there who would take what Lefebvre scribbled on a piece of paper as magisterial. And when you read the words of Paul VI, of John Paul II, to Marcel Lefebvre himself, they warned him numerous times. John Paul II used the word schismatic. This is firm disobedience to the Roman pontiff. This is schismatic. He actually said that. Actually, he spoke a lot more like a pope than Francis did. But you really come to see that, hey, I've got a problem here because, all these talking heads, including the society, they do attach themselves to Lefebvre as they are the final say here. But there's nothing, you can't find a document. And take Denzinger. I said this online. No one can see me, we don't have cameras, but I take Denzinger, look through the papacy. There's nothing that says when the supreme pontiff enacts, decrees, defines whatever on the universal church and church discipline and such matters, you can just ignore him and attach yourself to, example, Lefebvre. It doesn't exist. And you're put in that spot. And someone like John Salza, to his credit, recognized that. And he pulled away from the society because it really is a rift here. It's a very big question of authority. Just one final point here. The point is, it couldn't be more clear that the Catholic Church is a visible society whose members are baptized and they share one faith in common with the Roman pontiff. You cannot recognize and resist your way out of that. And I think people, I see people on Twitter, they do realize that. And so it will be interesting for sure to see where we go with this.
Yeah, I'm curious too. And I think that it's obviously sad. I have friends who are members of the FSSP and the Institute, and I think they're wrong. Mm-hmm. I think they're in obviously the wrong church. It's a false religion, it's a false church. But I do think that many of them are just trying to be Catholic, as I think many of us can understand. They're on a step, they're on the path, trying to find truth, trying to find tradition, trying to find the Catholic Church. And it's a confusing time. And I think that I'm super happy that Bergoglio is doing this, because I think that it has to make more and more people aware that, hey, we can't do this. Okay, if they're not going to let us get married here, we're not going to go to Father Jones.
Father Donut. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these clowns, these literal, they're clowns. They're actually clowns. And, so we're not going to do that. Now we can't go to FSSP. So, yeah, you're right. They're probably going to go to SSPX, which, as you said, it's just the wrong position. It is. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's not how the faith works. It's that there's a reason why many of these things were defined at Vatican I. It was all in preparation for this time. Like in Pius X too. Warned against modernism and warned against and loved the papacy. And it's something that there was it all happened for a reason, and people still kind of ignore it.
I was going to ask you though, Kev, what's the presence of those groups out there? Like in maybe, I don't know if how split Europe as a whole is, but maybe just in Germany, like does the fraternity or the institute, do they have a presence there at all? I know the institute's in Italy. What's it like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I couldn't tell you numbers, but it's definitely here. I mean, surely many, many, many more than you'd have Sede Vacantis, more than you have in SSPX as well. So they're pretty big, and I think that you see that. You see the conservative Novus Ordo. They've got a pretty firm grip, especially among young Novus Ordo Catholics.
Germany.
And again, if these in Europe, in Germany too. In Germany, Austria, I can speak fairly well, and I know some of these people. A lot of why they attach themselves to it is because of the Latin Mass, which it sounds like they're not. That's not being taken away, because Bergoglio understands if he takes that away, he'll lose all of them. If he takes away the sacraments, then he'll lose some of them. And I think that, I hope, and what I think we need to do in Europe somehow is to become more visible, because I can speak, at least in Germany, we're very invisible as Sede Vacantis. In the U.S., it's more on the map. There's more known names. Father Cicada, Bishop Sanborn, even Bishop Pivarunas. I mean, there's names that even people, like Frad, these guys who are, Salsa, they would know. They'd be like, oh yeah, I know those names. In Germany, it doesn't really exist. I mean, you've got a couple names like in Italy that are a little more well known. But I think we need to get on the map a little more.
I've thought about that, and one of the things that I've heard, the Sedevacantist, the RCI, the Roman Catholic Institute, I think they have what's the other one in Italy, the IMBC. They've got presences in Europe, but I think when you go to the bit east a little bit, people in Poland, for example, there's really no Sedevacantist stronghold there, and I was wondering what might it be, and a thought that came to mind was, Europe is filled with beautiful Catholic churches, whereas when you come to America, we do have the Northeast here. New England has a lot of Irish Italian settlement from the early 1900s. But if you go down south, like state of Florida or in that area, or even out west, a lot of the Novus Ordo churches are hideous. You can clearly see that it's a new religion. You can see that these churches are very ugly. Whereas I think if you're in Europe, right, even though it might be the Novus Ordo religion, you have these beautiful cathedrals that a lot of people typically go to mass on Sundays. So the sense of, I don't know what you would call it, the disconnect, I think, isn't as prominent there. You can't see the full ugliness of it in Europe because a lot of those beautiful buildings still stand, whereas here you can see that something is wrong. These are ugly churches. And I think that might have something to do with it.
Well, I can tell you, I know in Poland they call it Wotylism because it's JP2 is worshipped really in Poland. He's had a huge impact on them for the last 60 years, and so that's a big reason for Poland. But I think in Germany, again, I can speak a little bit more to Germany, is that the German culture, they got a lot going for them, but they also, how do you say it, that they have a general malaise. Americans go hot and cold. Americans do a lot of good things and a lot of really shockingly dumb things. And they just go up and down in good politics, bad politics. And in Germany, it's not really like that. They're much more, they're much more quiet. They're much more private. And they've been just so brainwashed for generations to not care. I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't want to be too harsh on Germans because I love Germans, but there's a general laziness in a way. Yeah. Kind of I don't really need to believe in anything. And I mean, it shows you it's a lot of modernism. I mean, Germans and the French and the Belgians, they were truly modernist, like the heresy of modernism before anybody else. And I think you see that. I think you see the remnants of that with this just idea of, does it really matter? I mean, do we really have to care? I mean, it's just, it's whatever. I can do whatever I want. It's humanism. It's that whole idea of we can decide. God doesn't really matter.
Right. And I think, a lot of countries out there where it might not be as popular, say France, Portugal or what have you. These are some of the they call France the eldest daughter of the church. Right. So I think there's an attachment here that if I leave this, then I'm actually, and this is a misconception, then I'm leaving the church, right? I think a lot of people are afraid of that. They think if they embrace Sedevacantism, that they're actually leaving the visible structure here of the church and sliding themselves to a new, different religion. And they're afraid because they see a lot of the roots there are Catholic, right? And I think that certainly plays to it. But kind of just to jump back really quick to the original point that we were talking about here. These people in the fraternity, in the institute, they're the same ones who continually say that, the council was pastoral. It's not binding. It's not pastoral. It's pastoral. It's pastoral. Yet they need, in order for their organization to even exist, they have to have signed on to it. So how pastoral is it where they're forced to have their signature on all these documents? Because that's why they operate. Unlike society, they put their name on these things. And so I think there's going to be a lot of riffraff too, because their argument here, especially with the Institute of Christ the King, is that John Paul II gave us permission and no one can take that away. I have heard that numerous times. And the problem is but John Paul II is not here anymore. Your living rule of faith is Francis. He can give what he wants and he can take what he wants. And they're missing that too. So will it be the end of these groups? It very well might be, because I think Francis understands that, he sees that the Latin Mass is being weaponized against the council. It's being weaponized against him. It's being weaponized against his magisterium. And I think he's trying to rid it. And from his perspective, I see what he's doing. because in a lot of ways he's right. There are two coexisting churches in this one Vatican II umbrella. Something has to give, and he's using his authority to smash it. And I see what he's doing very clearly. It's obvious. He recognizes that there is this, these dual entities here in the church, that there can't be two rites of one liturgy and all that, and he's trying to hammer it out to make a cohesion, because I think there is something in him that does kind of understand that he expressed this on his Twitter feed. Is it really him or not? I don't know, but that there should be a unity here in some way or another, and he senses that we're not. And so I think he's taking action to kind of blot it out. It's not, people who are just enjoying the Latin Mass, they're weaponizing it against him.
And this is something that people need to remember. And if anyone listening to this has questions, I will gladly set forward your questions to a traditional priest. I'm in touch with many, and I know there are some that would gladly answer your questions. So email me at kevined9davis@gmail.com. I will definitely forward your questions to a priest who will answer them for you, hopefully at the most convenient time possible. But I think what we got to remember too, that a lot of what people criticize St. Vacantus for is that, well, we don't have an authority. And it's like, and this is a really, really, really important point. I mean, it's the most important point, I think, really, of the entire issue, is that, when they say that, remember that almost all of them disobey at least one of their popes. All of them. I mean, at some point or another. Or if they don't disobey them, they at the very least disrespect them and talk behind their backs and say, I can't believe not. We all know it. Everybody does it. So remember this. St. Vacantus, and we're not perfect. Not everyone's perfect. But remember the position, the actual position, not the people. The position is that we respect and honor and obey the popes until 1958, when we say that was when the interregnum began at the death of Pius XII, and that makes sense. So don't come and tell me that, well, you just don't care about authority. Do you?
Sure.
Are you telling me you care about authority? The SSPX people especially, really? Come on.
They talk about obedience, and their group is called the Recognize and Resist.
Right, and they don't
they're
deny
obedient
it.
about nothing. Here's a quote that I guess maybe we can close with, because this is St. Alphonsus. So Pope Clement, when he suppressed the Jesuits, this was an act of the Supreme Pontiff acting as Supreme Pontiff, right? He has full authority over church discipline. He has full authority over the church. He can enact disciplines. He can do what he pleases. And he suppressed
Monarchy.
them. Right. St. Alphonsus Liguori was alive during the suppression of the Jesuits, and he responded. And now this is, I have the quote, I just pulled it up. This is the proper way to respond to this, right? So he was hurt. He was saddened. And he said, this is a quote, this is St. Alphonsus Liguori again, poor Pope, as for ourselves, we much keep silence. We respect the judgment of God, and we hold ourselves at peace. Period. There was no resistance. There was no rebel, let's take to the streets. You can see here that he was very saddened and upset by it, but he said we keep silence and we respect the judgment of God. And he said that because Christ told Peter, whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven. So the papacy is so powerful that whatever it enacts on this very earth here is reflected in heaven. So St. Alphonsus Liguori was able to call it the judgment of God, what came from the Pope. So as I put a little blurb under it, you don't recognize and resist, you obey. That is the perfect response. Now, the thing is, though, is, it's perfect. We're not guaranteed that the Pope is always going to be prudent, or that he's always going to make the most wonderful, happy, joyous, lovable, balloonish type decisions, but it's going to be safe to do so. And that is a completely different aspect from what we see today of the Vatican II Church promulgating a false religion on the entire block of faithful and calling it Catholicism.
Matt, We began with balloons and we ended with St. Alphonsus Liguori. That is, in a nutshell,
that's Monday mornings.
Monday mornings with Matt and Kevin. That is what we're all about. We like to talk about what's being talked about around the dinner table. We hope that you guys enjoyed. If you like the show, please like, share, subscribe, and especially comment. We want to hear your comments. Please let us know what you want us to talk about. I think someone commented last time, and then I totally forgot about it. I apologize. It was about. Shoot, I'll look it up again. I'm going to write it down. And we're going to look it up next week. It was a good topic too. Sorry, whoever that was. But I'll look it up again. Yeah, but please let us know what you want to hear our opinions on. We're right every single time. We're always correct. So if you want,
especially about unemployment numbers,
exactly. If you want an absolutely guaranteed correct opinion, let us know what you want to hear. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you sticking with us, and we appreciate you listening. And well, until the next balloon, maybe it's next week. Maybe there's another balloon story next week. Maybe it's an entire army, a flotilla,
balloons,
a balloon flotilla. We'll have something else to talk about next Monday. Matt, until then, I'll talk to you later. God bless.